A political sociologist says Fiji's Prime Minister Sitiveni Rabuka likely dismissed Education Minister Aseri Ranjojo to avoid looking weak. Despite requesting to be reinstated as a cabinet minister, Aseri Ranjojo's pleas have so far fallen on deaf ears. Alicia Foon spoke to political sociologist Stephen Ratuva about Rabuka's attempts to put out fires within his coalition government.
Rabuka's been trying his best to hold a coalition together, but with some challenges. So issues of discipline, so you have issues of differences in relation to where things are going and how things to be done. And there are also, of course, the scandals, which has been rocking the government, the sex politics scandal, insubordination scandal, and so forth. So Rabuka has been seen as a weak leader. And as a military officer, that probably doesn't sit well. So he's trying to do something to assert himself. The same way that his reputation as a coup-maker, as a tough soldier. So it's probably where the political psychology of his decision comes from, and not to respond positively to Sodelpa's appeal to change his mind. So there's been some attempt at reconciliation. Things still has to unfold as to how that will end up. Although Rabuka initially is saying that he's not interested in bowing down to any attempt to reinstate Ranjojo. So it's a stalemate of some kind. Potentially can be destabilizing in the long run.
You brought up the sex and drug scandal. This has been dominating headlines for the past at least 2 weeks. Do you believe that it's a coincidence or that something is being unofficially addressed through this dismissal, and now we're seeing a complaint against Linda Taboya? So that complaint is currently being assessed by the People's Alliance watchdog, and the fact that Aseri has been dismissed and now Linda could be. Do you believe there's a link here to that scandal?
Well, it's very easy to make links. It's very easy to draw up conspiracy theories, I suppose. It's particularly when the same people are involved. And although the situations under scrutiny are probably different from each other, but because they're linked in terms of personalities, so people make conclusion maybe they're linked. Certainly, the way in which the drag and sex scandal had played out has embarrassed the government. It has weakened its moral force, particularly in a Christian country, and particularly when Rabuka and the leaders of Sodelpa and a few other politicians are actually evangelical Christians. So there are these levels of contradictions, which, and of course, those connections will be made and are being made by people. People are calling for both Ranjojo and Linda Taboya to go. And, in the social media, in private, politicians are talking about it. And a lot of people in this country are also talking about it because it's being suggested is all these scandals are distraction from what the role of the government should be doing to address issues of development, to address issues of opportunities, of education, of health, and all the energy is focused on the crisis which is at hand.
Do you believe there is some truth to these scandals and what's been happening, despite Linda Taboya telling us that it's fake news, and then former Minister Rondondoro and denying the allegations?
Well, the general feeling amongst people is that there's a certain degree of truth in it, and there have been backstories as well to those who know about the two in government and so forth. A lot of evidence there, but naturally the two will defend their position because it's going to be very costly for them politically in terms of reputation, in terms of the moral high ground which they thought they would be occupying as leaders of the community. And so they have to defend themselves. It's their right to defend themselves. And if investigations show that, in the case of Linda, for instance, if it's true, then there's some disciplinary processes, I suppose, which the party has to go through. It's been part of the discussion, certainly, in the last month or so, and it dominates the narrative. Certainly politicians, they're public figures, and they're paid by taxpayers. There has to be accountability. They are role models, not only political role models, they're moral role models, they're cultural role models. They are looked up to, so it's important that there are processes in place. There are codes of conduct for parliamentarians. It's important to abide by those. I think it's very important that the leaders should be seen to be law-abiding and make sure that their behaviour is exemplary.
We have also been told, well, affairs between ministers and what they do in private is no one's business. That should not be the focus. Considering the Christian morals and the grounds and foundation that this government speaks on and acts on, do you believe there is that kind of moral discussion surrounding what is expected of politicians and parliamentarians when it comes to behaving at a standard that is essentially moral and biblical?
It's multi-layered. This kind of scandals, you have to see it from different perspectives. Yes, it is true that what happens in private behind the scenes should be left there. But yes, for private citizens, that's true. But as in another country in the world, whether it's the United States, Trump is going through that in the court, whether it's in Britain, in Australia, those public sex scandals by politicians actually can be career-ending because it's of public interest, because it represents a very significant behavioral issue for politicians. So politicians should be setting the tone in terms of how they behave. And if in public they do things which may not be right in the eyes of the community, then there will be responses. And certainly in a country where Christianity is dominant, particularly amongst the indigenous Fijians, and there's a growing influence of evangelical Christians. So some of those issues which have moral implications become part of the bigger, not only religious, not only cultural, but certainly political issue. But there have been scandals within the churches themselves, sex scandals, and a few ministers have ended up in jail for that. So it's something which is quite common, not just in Fiji, but elsewhere, especially at this point in time. It's very important for politicians to understand that people on the ground, people in the community, still have moral view of the world, which has to be respected as well.